Should we talk about Luna before we finish up? Just because it's a bit of fun.
If you like.
Well, I mean, look, it's not fun that a lot of people have lost a lot of money. That's fucking terrible. And also, it's not fun to see Bitcoin being dragged about by shitcoin activity elsewhere. That's the most annoying thing for me. And where it becomes really annoying, Adam, is you have these big crashes in the markets. Suddenly it gets onto it was in Sky and BBC and the Daily Mail, and then your friends speak to you and they say, oh, I hear Bitcoin's crashing again. People want to ask you about the negative side of it, and you're like, yeah, but this was because of some stupid Ponzi algo stablecoin idea that had nothing to do with Bitcoin. It was just somebody was then using the money they printed to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, then they had to resell. Like, we're affected by these decisions. And you were chatting to me beforehand, about this perhaps affecting leverage traders in some ways unfairly.
Right. Well, I mean, people are investing in Bitcoin because they believe in it, because they look at the macroeconomic background, money printing, inflation, interest rates, and looking for a hedge. And, of course, if you just buy in cold store and the price drops a bit and then, it halves and then it doubles across a period of a year, it doesn't make that much difference once you get accustomed to that volatility. But some people are more risk on, they've got leverage on. And so if somebody creates a bit of a flash crash drama through market misunderstanding, that can hurt them economically through no fault of their own. So you get this kind of contagion effect. And of course, if people are leveraged, they're either forced to manually deleverage to protect themselves, or the trading platforms will force to lever them. So that that amplifies the flash crash, basically. And you see stats posted, so many 100 million liquidations. That's what it's about. So, yeah, I mean, Luna basically was sort of like a fractional reserve bank, operated as a so-called decentralized thing. And their idea was basically the sort of shares in the bank, which were the Luna tokens. And there were some VC investors who put in the original money. It's a bit unclear whether it's somewhere between 1.5 and $3 billion. I'm not sure how much VC money got committed. I presume they got Luna tokens, a bit hazy on the details. Like yourself, I only really paid attention when people started getting enthusiastic about Luna Foundation buying $1 billion plus in Bitcoin. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. These guys are going to get themselves flash crashed and sell all the Bitcoin in one go, and that won't be helpful. And, that was in late March. So scroll forward about 6 weeks and it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I smelled a different rat in that it reminded me of Block One. This idea that you can create a token, print and sell a bunch of it, and then take that to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. One is I feel like you're openly telling people they're making a bad decision because you're taking their money and buying Bitcoin. That's what you're doing. You're saying, here, give me your money. I'll give you this token. I'm going to take that. I'm going to buy Bitcoin.
Right.
You're giving a market signal to that person. And that idea that because it came out of nowhere for me. I don't know how long Luna had been around, and so I don't pay attention to this shit. I've never actually used a stablecoin ever. Never used one. And I know I'm meant to use Liquid. So for me, I was just like, this just smells fishy. I don't like this. I hadn't even got into the mechanics of how it worked. But the 20% interest, I was like, when anyone's offering 20% interest, that smells fishy as well. There were just so many things that smelt fishy. And suddenly here we are. It's a complete market crash. But you'd spotted it early on.
Yeah, well, I said some of the same things earlier, which is, they were buying, people getting enthusiastic about how many Bitcoin they said they were buying. So I just asked on Twitter some pointy questions like, where is the money coming from that you're buying the Bitcoin with? Is it ICO money? Is the ICO money your collateral? If it is, the whole thing could flash crash because the value of your ICO can get stressed at the same time, and then the whole thing can collapse. Now, of course, they protested and said that, that some of it was real money. They'd actually got wire transfers from investors. But evidently a lot of it wasn't real money, because their total supply of Luna at one point reached, I think, 17 billion or something. And so they had, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15% of that in real money. So, Yeah.
Fractional reserve shitcoining.
I mean, about stablecoins, I think it also is quite unhelpful because, it's brought disrepute to, conservative types of stablecoins like Tether and Circle and Gemini, all of which have, one-to-one or more than one-to-one backing of actual US dollar short-term deposits, cash equivalents, and, various stated interest-bearing things. And so, they can redeem one-to-one all day long, basically, because, I think, for example, during the last few days, Tether redeemed 3 billion out of, I don't know what they're at, 80 some, in the space of a few days. So clearly they can redeem. But, UST versus USDT, it's only one letter difference. I think some people get confused.
Well, it does get confusing. There are so many of them. They get confusing. A lot of them appear on different chains. You don't know what each one stands for. And I don't think people, after I was on Pomp's show and Pomp was asking me about it, and I was just like, it sounds a bit shady. And this guy dropped me an email. I said, oh, you don't really understand Luna and Terra. And he's like, sent me some articles. And I was like, this article was, if I don't know, 20 pages long if it was printed on A4. And it was all about the explanation, about how it works, how it maintains its peg, how the Luna token interacts with the stablecoin. But, this huge, I was like, I don't have time to understand all this shit. I don't have time. I just want to, again, it's a bit like trusting almost. Like if I was going to use a stable coin, I think I trust, like say Gemini, Tether, Circle. I trust those. I want to use it. A bunch of people have trusted this and have got completely and utterly wrecked because they have no idea what they're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, some of the transparency went out the window too because, I think you could observe the Luna token versus the Terra US, the UST, because it was on-chain. And because it inflated the Luna supply by orders of magnitude, just created more and more of them to try and keep the thing afloat. But the Bitcoin reserves, they transferred them all, and that you could see that transfer to a professional market maker to try and defend. So, that's lost visibility, and they're not answering questions like, did they sell all of it? Did they sell some of it? Did they sell none of it? We don't know. And I think another kind of curious aspect of this, and really should cause some introspection for the VCs and professional investors who put up the $1.5 to $3 billion in the beginning, is their reputations and money help bootstrap this thing. They may, I presume, they get Luna tokens or some kind of discounted kind of tokens or stock in it, and because it's tokenized, one of the attractions for an investor is they can take the money out very quickly. And there was a period where this thing was going up in value very rapidly, right? Mm-hmm. So, some of the VCs may have actually made a large profit long before it imploded. And of course, taking a profit out actually leaves the thing higher leveraged and more fragile. So there's a question there of, whether professional investors are like moving away from funding innovation and products that provide value to users, and there's an exit and people make money when they succeed in making a popular product, versus renting reputation to Ponzi-like things, taking the money out in early and letting it collapse and then doing it again, because that is a risk for the end user. It diverts capital from productive uses to kind of casino behavior, and it risks the ire of regulators. Immediately regulators are talking about Terra, and apparently the SEC was already investigating Terra and Do Kwon, one of the founders. So,
he could end up in jail, right?
I presume so. He's in Singapore, but Singapore is a regulated financial center in its own right.
Yeah. It is frustrating because every one of these rug pulls ends up bringing Bitcoin into the same ecosystem of bullshit. And we end up having to not only defend, like I said earlier, defend it to my friends who are like, what's happened to Bitcoin? And you have to defend it to regulators. And it's just, it's just bloody frustrating that people don't do a better job with this, especially with all these crypto VCs raising 1, 3, 5 billion to invest in Web3, and I feel like we're going to see this over and over again. I also feel like over the next week or two, we're going to hear about some funds who have maybe blown up or.
Yeah, I mean, somebody has got to have been hurt, and the other thing is the explosion was considered to be a speculative attack. Like that was a funded, coordinated thing by somebody with a lot of market intelligence, trading capability, and money to play with, and some leverage. So it's kind of like the George Soros attack against the British pound peg in it pre-Euro days. If you have money and you see something that's illogical and people are suspending logic and pumping up the value of something, you can short it and burst the bubble. And, I think some people feel that was a bad act, but actually it's good because it flushes out silly stuff so that what's left makes sense. So if there are, and the fact that they succeeded at that will give them funding and embolden other people with that skill set to work their way down the list and do that to anything else that doesn't make sense. And so ultimately you end up with the survivors being less stupid ideas, more robust things. But I'm not sure that the mechanism is there really to discourage VCs and big investors from lending reputation and putting discounted early money into these things, because some of them probably got their money out and made a profit on it.
Oh yeah, almost certainly. I don't think it changes that. Hopefully what it changes is the mindset of those who are potentially investing, but perhaps not. I mean, we've seen a bunch of new Bitcoin maxis minted this week, people declaring they're done, and that's great. But we've also seen I don't know if you've been on the Reddit, but all the terrible comments of people saying they've lost everything.
No, I mean, it is bad. I saw somebody commenting that, one particularly bad thing about it is that because it's advertised as a stablecoin, as a dollar equivalent plus an interest rate, that's actually marketing itself to conservative investors who are saying, I don't want the price volatility. I just want an interest rate. Of course, as you said, it was naive to think that there's a risk-free 20% interest. That doesn't exist when the free market interest rate, risk-free interest rate is super low at the moment. So that's a red flag. But, a lot of people are not professional investors. So they wouldn't spot that. So if they're looking for stability, they got the exact opposite.
Yeah. And also Alex Gladstein talks about how important stablecoins are for the developing world. We've had a long conversation about that. And it's one of the reasons I've come a little bit less harsh on other protocols, as much as I don't want to, I don't own any Ethereum, I wouldn't use it, or Tron. At the same time, I know there's people like Palestine who are, parts of Africa who are using stablecoins on these protocols, and they're using it for survival. I mean, that's the money they trade, it's the way they protect their wealth. Bitcoin's too risky for them, but if these people got, are they sophisticated enough to understand the difference between a Tether or a UST or US? All these coins tend to sit near each other. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the network that's used to transport the stablecoin is the centralized ones like Circle and Tether and Gemini. Doesn't really matter because ultimately it's a claim on a central party and it's reserved, and the reserves it's set aside for that client funds, right? So. And you can, for example, with Tether, you can use that on a Bitcoin layer 2 on sidechains, and there are proposals to do similar things for Lightning, a couple of competing proposals for that. I mean, of course, I think, US dollars fall rapidly in value at the moment with the amount of money printing. So it's not really it's short-term stable, but it's just predictably going down, right? So now Bitcoin has the opposite effect, which is it's a bit unstable, but it's tended to go up, and so has a positive price trend over the longer term. So I mean, I think a lot of probably the biggest amount of volume in stablecoins, bearing in mind Tether, there are competing ones by market cap, but by transferred volume, Tether is like 10x ahead of the rest, right?
Yeah.
And that is because it's embedded in most exchanges as the de facto way to move dollars. And so it's mostly used for trading, people to move money between one exchange and another. as collateral for some of the derivative products, and as Bitcoin secured lending, like on HODL, you're going to borrow in a stablecoin basically, and then you can convert that into a bank account or something. So I think the other annoying thing is that the media doesn't get it often and sort of amplifies confusion. So they said, they tried to say that Tether had broken the peg, but it's absolutely not the case. It was being redeemed 1-to-1 the entire period. But the point is that banks suck, and so if you have a short time preference, like you need some dollars in your bank now to cover like a share loan, or you need tethers to trade now, you'll pay a premium to get it fast. And the only reason you're paying that premium is because banks suck. And so if the market is being dramatic, the premium could be high or low, but this happens all the time. And it's fine because, if you're not in a hurry, just wait. And if you are in a hurry, you're probably in a hurry for a reason, which is you see something that's a cheap price and you want to buy it and you need to, convert to Tether or to dollar to get it. So you'll pay the premium. And there will be other people incentivized by that premium to say, well, I'm not in a hurry. I have some Tethers. You can have them and I'll go convert them for, pick up the few percent difference, like next week.
It's wild how often we have to deal with this shit.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like the NFTs are starting to crash as well now, and I think a few other projects will collapse, and I wonder if we're going to just do exactly the same in 4 years' time, 3 years' time now.
Well, yeah. I mean, I noticed there's various dominance indexes, but the Bitfinex one, which is BTC Dom Perp, was up 20% in the last 2 days.
Wow.
So that's sort of like, when you get a global financial drama, the dollar tends to get stronger. Flight to safety. Mm-hmm. It might have its own problems, but people know it. And so it's kind of perceived flight to safety. And you see that in Bitcoin, flight out of the long tail of altcoins to Bitcoin.